Welcome back to the Spooky Channel, where we explore the most mysterious and haunted places in the world. Today we have a special treat for you, the top 10 most haunted places in the world. These places have been avoided by people for centuries, and for good reason. With dark and mystical pasts, they continue to fascinate and terrify us. Let's dive in and see what makes these places so haunted. Castle of Good Hope, South Africa. Built in the 17th century by the Dutch East India Company to protect their trade routes, the castle has seen its fair share of tragedies and atrocities over the centuries. It was even used as a prison during the Second Boer War, and the souls of those who suffered there are said to still haunt the castle to this day. One of the most famous ghosts is that of Governor Peter Gijsbert van Noort, who was cursed by a soldier he unjustly executed and found dead in his office soon after. Visitors report hearing his muttering curses echoing through the halls. There are also sightings of a ghostly black dog, a man jumping from the walls, and the sound of arguing men and women. So prevalent are the stories of hauntings that even the guards patrolling the grounds won't walk through the arches at night. But despite its dark past, the Castle of Good Hope is now a popular tourist attraction and cultural center. Akershus Fortress, Norway. Built in the late 13th century, this foreboding fortress was originally intended as a safe haven for the royal family and a stronghold for the city of Oslo. But over the centuries, it has been used for many different purposes, leading to rumors that the place is haunted. At the turn of the 20th century, Akershus Fortress was used as a prison, housing some of Norway's most dangerous criminals and rebels. The conditions were said to be terrible, with inmates treating each other brutally and suffering at the hands of the guards. But the real horrors took place during World War II, when the castle was taken over by Nazi forces. It became the site of numerous executions, with prisoners chained up in medieval dungeons before being sent to the firing squad. The ghosts of these victims are said to still haunt the castle, with visitors reporting the sounds of clanging chains and pained groans, as well as sightings of ghostly guards on duty. Legend has it that if you see a large, ghoulish black dog while at the castle, it's a sign that you're about to suffer a horrible and painful death. Scary stuff. Despite its haunted reputation, Akershus Fortress now functions as a cultural center and hosts foreign dignitaries on behalf of the Norwegian government. But be warned, if you're ever brave enough to visit, you might just encounter some ghostly inhabitants. The Stanley Hotel, Colorado. Despite opening as one of the first hotels in the world to be powered by purely electricity, the power supply had proved to be unreliable. So the decision was made to install gas lighting. The day after the work had been completed, a gas leak in room 217 was ignited when a maid entered it with a lit candle. This resulted in her being seriously injured and a large portion of the structure being damaged. If you've watched or read The Shining and were freaked out by the story, then you have the Stanley Hotel to blame. It was built in a location with stunning views across the Rocky Mountains, and strange occurrences have been reported ever since an accident that happened in 1911. The owner paid for the maid's medical care and promoted her to head maid when the hotel reopened. But following her death in the 1950s, her spirit was said to haunt the rooms near to where the accident happened. Now known as the Stephen King Suite, it's one of the most popular ghost hunter destinations in the world. And if you're lucky, you might just meet the ghost that inspired one of the most famous scary movies ever made. So there you have it, guys, the Stanley Hotel, a place that has truly earned its reputation as one of the most haunted hotels in the world. If you're ever in the area, be sure to check it out, and who knows, you may just have an encounter with a ghost. Poveglia Island, Italy. Welcome to Poveglia Island, one of the most haunted places in Europe. This little piece of land is situated in the Venetian Lagoon in Italy and has a dark and checkered history. In the 18th century, the island served as a quarantine station for incoming ships trying to avoid the plague. But the measures led to a catastrophe as healthy sailors were trapped on the island with infected people. It's estimated that up to 160,000 people died and were buried there during that time. Later, the island became a mental hospital where patients suffered under inhumane and torturous experiments. The treatments were said to be attempts to cure certain conditions, but they only caused more death and misery. After its abandonment in the 1960s, the island has deteriorated and become a breeding ground for ghost sightings, strange sounds, and an overall sense of unease. Glamis Castle, Scotland. Have you heard about Glamis Castle in Scotland? It's been around for centuries and has a pretty spooky history. Back in the day, it used to be a haunting lodge that was linked to some eerie happenings, including the murder of Scottish King Malcolm II. But in 1372, a grand castle was built on the site with hopes of bringing new fortune to the area. Unfortunately, despite attempts to dispel its reputation, the castle has remained associated with haunted occurrences to this day. Legend has it that in the 19th century, a family living in the castle had a hideously deformed child who became known as the Monster of Glamis. They were so ashamed of him that they kept him hidden within the castle for his entire life and even buried his body behind a brick wall. No one knows about his existence to this day. Efforts have been made to find out if there is a secret part of the castle, and while there are certainly some unusual design features, the remains of the monster have yet to be found. But there are still stories that this ghost walks the halls and attacks unsuspecting guests. With all of the stories of gruesome fates suffered by other ghosts, Glamis Castle has become one of the most haunted places in the country. Would you dare to visit and see if the legends are true? Let us know in the comments below. The White House, Washington, D.C. Despite being the symbol of American democracy, the White House, which first opened in 1792, is infamous for its ghost stories. One of the most well-known tales involved the specter of Abraham Lincoln, the president who was tragically assassinated in 1865. During his second term, many presidents, their families, and staff members have claimed to have had encounters with his ghost, including Lyndon Johnson, Theodore Roosevelt, and even Winston Churchill. It is believed that Lincoln's spirit is still there to ensure that his unfinished business is completed. Although the last sighting was reported in the 1980s, other apparitions are said to haunt the building, including Lincoln's son, who died of typhoid at the age of 11, and former slaves or servants. These frequent sightings by reliable sources make the White House one of the most haunted places on Earth. The Recoleta Cemetery. In the Recoleta neighborhood of Buenos Aires, Argentina, lies La Recoleta Cemetery, a place known for its hauntings. It's the burial site for many famous people, including former Argentinian presidents, Nobel Prize winners, and writers, and with over 6,000 remains interred there, it almost feels like a town in its own right. There are countless stories of ghosts and hauntings, leading to it being named Argentina's most haunted place. One famous story is about Rufina, a 19-year-old girl who was buried alive in 1902. Her coffin was moved during a powerful storm, and when her family opened it the next morning, they found her body battered and bruised. She was then placed in a mausoleum to make it look like she's walking out the door, and when visitors still report seeing her ghost trying to escape to this day. But she's not the only ghost thought to haunt La Recoleta. There's also the former caretaker, a mysterious woman in white, and a naval officer. It's said that if you go at night, you're almost certain to encounter one of them, making La Recoleta Cemetery one of the spookiest places in the world. Chateau de Teresa, France. Picture this, a stunning chateau in the Brittany region of France, built in the 14th century with a haunting story that has been passed down through the generations. This is the Chateau de Teresa, which remained in the same family for 400 years before being sold during the French Revolution. It was around this time that a local thief witnessed a disturbing event in the chateau's surrounding grounds. A carriage pulled up and two men jumped out to dig a large hole. They then removed a woman in a wedding dress from the carriage and buried her alive in the pit with her bouquet. The men shouted that she had dishonored her family before quickly covering the pit and leaving. The thief ran home and told his wife, who urged him to rescue the woman, but by the time he returned to the scene, she had already passed away. If there was ever an event that would cause a soul to remain and haunt a place, it's this one. And visitors to the Chateau de Teresa often report seeing a mysterious woman dressed in white walking the courtyard close to where she is believed to have been buried. So there you have it, the chilling tale of the Chateau de Teresa. It's a reminder that history can leave its mark on a place, and that sometimes the past comes back to haunt us. If you ever find yourself in the Brittany region of France, be sure to visit this beautiful but eerie chateau. Who knows, you might just have your own encounter with the ghostly woman in white. Jazeera Al Hamra, UAE. In the United Arab Emirates on the coast lies the town of Jazret Al Hamran. By 1830, it had a population of around 200 people who were mainly involved in diving for pearls. Over the next century, its population grew to 2,500, but due to disagreements with the region's rulers, many were forced to move to Abu Dhabi. For those who remained, life started to become very weird, with reports of hauntings and paranormal experiences. These occurrences were especially frequent around the mosque that had been built by those who had to leave. According to legend, things got so bad that everyone fled, and it now stands abandoned as a true ghost town. The only people who dare to venture into its boundaries are ghost hunters and brave tourists. Very few of them return without tales of strange noises, creepy cold chills, and the sensation that someone or something was following very closely behind them their entire time there. HINTON, AMPNER, United Kingdom. In Hampshire, England, there is a stately home called HINTON AMPNER. It was constructed in 1970 by a wealthy family as a replacement for a nearby Tudor house that was reputedly haunted. Even after the new house was built, odd happenings persisted. Mary Ricketts, one of the residents, wrote about strange temperature changes, rattling noises, the ground moving beneath her feet, and even hearing words spoken in a foreign language. While she slept, tragedies also befell those who lived there, with some dying prematurely and one even being murdered. In 1960, a fire badly damaged the structure and it had to be completely rebuilt. The last owner passed away in 1985 and, without any heirs, donated the property to the National Trust. Nowadays, regular tours are offered for visitors to experience a slice of English countryside and maybe even witness some ghostly activity. Dear spook enthusiasts, thank you for watching our creepy content. If you enjoyed it, please consider giving us a thumbs up and subscribing to our channel. Your support means a lot to us, and we would love to hear your feedback in the comment section. Stay curious and keep an eye out for more spine-tingling episodes in the future.